for Dr. Rodnan. Dr. Rodnan, what the hell is happening in Russia? I haven't got a clue. But I can tell you one thing. When you start throwing your, when you start putting your security with a private, some privateers, right? These guys who are going to run your army in a private manner, maybe you run the risk of having things like this happen, right? But anyway, thug number one fighting thug number two. What can I say? Thug number one fighting thug number two. John Cotter says, hello, Egberto, listening from Denver, Colorado today. Man, this guy gets to travel all around the world, around the state, because he pilots those big birds. The 777, right? Did I get that right? Did I finally remember it right? 777 or 787? One or the other. Anyhow, let's see. Bridge MCP is in the house. E2247. ¿Cómo estás, mi amigo? 777 is for John. John is, piloting those big birds. I envy John. I wish I didn't have a fear of heights, that I could fly those things and do all these things. Can't do it. Anyway, E2247 is in the house. Lee Grant is in the house. Paul Fleming is in the house, and we got to get together, Paul, and get some time put together. Let's see who else we've got here. May Wood is in the house, as well as Alistair Waters. She says she's driving the one and only Bruce Pollard, who will be in a few weeks in Chicago at its first Netroots Nation. Then we also have, para ver, Yvette Avery Herod, the one and only, the number one union activist. I always call her the number one union activist because she's done a whole lot of stuff with the unions, man. Let me just tell you, she is in what we would say in Panama, en la ola, en la ola. All right, Michael Rudnin, of course, is in the house, and he was the first one to ask, what the hell is happening in Russia? To which I respond, I don't know. If anybody knows, let me know. 1 day of rain in 6 weeks is what Bridge MCP says. What else have we got here? In this new era, addressing global problems like climate change, pandemic, and major wars like Ukraine will require coordinated, cooperative work among several of these power centers, not just two. Absolutamente correcto. You're absolutely right. How do you today address the reality, and what are the plans of 2030 to 2040? What does the emergent multipolar world order look like? How will its emergence affect the outcome of the war in Iraq? Very, very important feelings. Carter says, not afraid of heights, just falling. I hear you, buddy, because if you fall from those heights, a lot of people fall in with you. How many people does a 777 hold in the normal configuration? About 300 people or so? Is that right? Let me know. I don't quite know. Anyhow, we also have Michael Rodney say, Egberto, try skydiving. Get over your fear of heights in a hurry. Michael, I thought you liked me. I would, before I hit the ground, I'll probably get a heart attack coming down, dude. What's wrong with you? You're trying to kill me. Okay, John Carter says between 270 to 365 in our fleet. It's a lot of planes. Wait. In your fleet, you mean you can either hold 270 to 365 people, one or the other, or different configurations? I think that's what you're saying. Please let me know if I understood that right. Egberto, man, you don't see the laughing cat emoji? Jokes, man, jokes. I saw it. Don't you think I was joking too? Come on, man. I know you love me, man. All right, let's see what else we got here. Look, this weekend we had the opening of the grand opening of the building after a whole year at KPFT. Actually, it's actually like 9 months we've been open, the new building at KPFT. So we had that grand opening, and I had that cake. Oh man, it was really good. A lot of sweets, man. A lot of sweets. But you know what? I ate it good. We did some videos out there, etc., to inaugurate the new building. Anyhow, but I had to take off early because I had to interview. I finally got an interview with Norman Solomon, who just wrote the book. I think it's released. I'm not sure if it's released officially yet. I got a copy, but I'm not sure if it's released yet. That is titled War Made Invisible. Great, great interview. Want you guys to listen to this. Then we'll take it on the other side, and then we'll talk our other stuff after this interview. This one is just 24 minutes, but it's a good 24 minutes of good talking. So here we go with the one and only Norman Solomon. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Norman Solomon is an American journalist, an activist, a media critic, and the co-founder and national coordinator of RootsAction.org. He's the author of War Made Easy and is a longtime associate of Fairness, and Accuracy in Reporting. His new book, War Made Invisible: How America Hides the Human Toll of Its Military Machine, is a must-read. Every single person that has read this book thus far finds it a must-read, especially in these militaristic times that we are here in the United States of America. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Norman Solomon.
Thanks so much.
Look, it's my pleasure to have you as usual. You know, there's one part of where you mentioned when you give the indication that some people seem to be expendable. I'm originally from Central America, Panama, and I remember when Bush #1 invaded Panama, and when I think it was Colin Powell, they asked about the number of Panamanians that got killed, and the statement, I think it was out of his mouth or one of his proteges' mouth, was collateral damage. And just when I read the title of your book, that is the first thing that came to mind: people as collateral damage. Why did you write this book?
I wrote it really much because of the point that you're raising here, that in the US media and politics, whether it's acknowledged directly or not, some people are expendable and some people aren't. And a couple of years after that invasion of Panama, when the United States killed, according to the Pentagon, about 100,000 Iraqi people in 6 weeks, Time magazine gave a definition of collateral damage. According to this magazine, which was the main news magazine of the United States, collateral damage referred to people who should have chosen, and I'm quoting here, should have chosen a different neighborhood. Now, this is the kind of arrogance that we're dealing with. And in the 1980s, we had the effort of the United States of America from the White House to overcome what it often described out of the Oval Office as something bad that had taken place. It was called the Vietnam Syndrome because, according to the military authorities and the presidents, this was a bad thing. People after the Vietnam War in the United States, some of them, many were very hesitant or even opposed to the US intervening. So during the 80s, we had, of course, the invasion of Grenada, then the invasion of Panama, and that was a run-up. This was, okay, we're getting back into it, so we will crush these two small countries, and then we'll go on, have bigger fish to fry in terms of militarism. So the Gulf War in 1991, then the US-led bombing of Serbia and Kosovo in 1999, 78 straight days of bombing, not a single American lost, which is another way that good US wars are defined. And then after 9/11, going ahead to invade Afghanistan and Iraq. And so I wrote this book to bring up to the surface something that is so routinely evaded, many points on this spectrum that are not addressed. One is that the United States media and politics, with rare exceptions, tacitly or explicitly divides the planet into two parts: those who count and those who don't, those who suffer, whose grief matters, and those whose grief does not matter. And not coincidentally, the people whose grief does not matter, according to US media and dominant politics, are people whose suffering is caused by the US military.
It is hard to believe. I noticed the first chapter of your book, you called it Repetition and Omission. Explain that. I mean, repetition and omission. We do it all over and over again. And what are we omitting here? What are we missing here?
Yes, in terms of the U.S. military intervention, you could say it's sort of a repetition compulsion disorder. And in terms of propaganda messaging,
Yes.
we really know. I mean, how many times, if you watch a lot of TV, do you see a McDonald's commercial? You don't see it once, you don't see it twice. You see it so often. That's because it's well understood that in advertising, in propaganda, propaganda requires repetition. Repeating is the essence of propaganda. And when we talk about the bias, the extreme pro military bias in favor of what Martin Luther King Jr. called the madness of militarism, once in a while somebody will say, "Oh, but I read a news article that said something very different. I read a commentary, I heard one somewhere on a radio network, a commercial one, and it did bring up these points that you say are not being brought up sufficiently at all." And my answer to that is because the essence of propaganda is repetition, the exceptions are they're exceptional. That does not disrupt the dominant propaganda model. And what we're dealing with now, here we are, the middle of 2023, and it has been so normalized. Healthcare, education, housing, neonatal care, elderly care in the United States, let alone many other countries, lacking basic support. People are dying behind this inequity, and yet we're told that the Pentagon budget needs to keep rising through the roof. You know, Biden recommended last year he wanted a budget of 800 and something $billion just for the Pentagon. That wasn't enough for the bipartisan chairs of the House Armed Services Committees. Even more than that was appropriated.
Now, it's interesting because we talk about repetition and the way that the media gets involved in it. I want to ask a rather sinister question. Is the media generally supportive or the way they interpret these military actions from the United States as benevolent because they get a profit from all these advertisers that we have on TV? Again, you see a lot of Lockheed commercials, Martin Marietta commercials, and all these others on these stations. Are they sort of feeding, not wanting to bite the hands that feed them, in effect?
It's really multifactorial, and that's definitely one of the factors where you have significant numbers of dollars flowing into major and smaller media outlets, advertising from the US military, from military contractors, and so forth. So that's one of the ways in which there's an incentive and a pressure to go along and get along with the militarism of the society. And we have the political pressure, or we have other kinds of commercial pressure. You have ownership with interlocking directorates, people who are on the board of a major military contractor, which includes Silicon Valley, by the way, and they're also on the board of a major TV network or a huge news outlet of some sort. So that, again, is a pressure. And then you have the revolving door that goes around and around between Capitol Hill, the White House, and these military contractors. As a matter of fact, Antony Blinken, he took 4 years out from government service during the Trump administration, since he's a Democrat. And he made a lot of money brokering military sales to the Pentagon. And so then he had to set aside some of his investments in a blind trust and so forth when he came back into the Biden administration as it took shape. So this is very structural. And in terms of domestic policies, and I know in Politics Done Right, you cover this extensively, a big difference between Democrats and Republicans on healthcare, on education, on civil liberties, on democracy. Of course, we want the Democrats to be much stronger for human rights on these issues, often falling short. But let's face it, the Republicans are neo-fascists in Congress. So that's a big difference in domestic policies. However, once you get to what's been referred to often as beyond the water's edge, there becomes a unity, you might say an imperial unity, where it's very hard. You know, once you get away from an issue, say like on climate change, global warming, where there is a difference, but in terms of military expenditures and intervention, Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill, it's more like that. They're two peas in a militaristic pot.
Let me ask you something about that, Norm, because that is something that we see that, I mean, it's very, very obvious. But is the driving force really that they're together, or is the driving force that one party is scared to appear weak and thus they jump on the same bandwagon? Which one is it?
Well, I think it is a combination. There's a shared belief in that the United States is the gift to the world, the extraordinary nation, as it's often called, the indispensable nation. There's a lot of pressure and belief, whatever the internal belief is, and I believe it's probably mostly internalized. Democrats and Republicans, they believe that's their role. But there also is that fear you're referring to. And when I was growing up during the escalation of the Vietnam War, one thing that Democrats did not want to be called is soft on communism. Mm-hmm. And then right after 9/11, and for years, Democrats or Republicans, but Democrats felt more defensive about this. They didn't want to be called soft on terrorism. And so that really is another club held over the head of members of Congress, some of whom are very much inclined to want to push back against the militarism. And yet there's a lot of self-restraint that therefore, frankly, often amounts to political cowardice.
You know, it's interesting because, I think one of the reasons books like yours, and not only this book, but all the other books that you put out, informative and so important, is that I think a lot of times the ignorance of the American populace is what these plutocrats depend on, and then of course they puppeteer the politicians to do their will. But as an example, we talk about America needs to get tough on China. America needs to get tough on India. How could America possibly get tough? What can America really do if these guys ever just say, no, is military really the answer? Is military just a cop out?
Well, there's really almost a nostalgia which is being outdistanced by the economic realities of the world on Capitol Hill, and nostalgia for a unipolar world. Mm-hmm. I remember the standard bumper sticker often was red, white, and blue flag on the sticker, and next it would say, "These colors don't run." And that's an attitude that we run the world. And of course, the counter bumper sticker also had an American flag, red, white, and blue, and said, "These colors don't run the world." But that's a hard one.
Yeah.
The aspiration is still there. And when you step back and you realize that 96% of the human beings on this planet do not live in the United States of America, you see the arrogance involved of empire, not empire building, because the empire of the US has been around for many, many decades, but an effort to retain the empire. And I think part of that explains why the extreme bias on Capitol Hill and US corporate media and so forth, that does, so to speak, tint the window on the world red, white, and blue. And it then has this, what I call in the book, War Made Invisible, 2 tiers of grief. The grief that is part of human experience, and in war, the grief that Americans have suffered or American allies, then that tier of grief is honored as it should be. But the tier of grief, say, of people in Afghanistan or Libya or Iraq who have died because of US military firepower, that tier of grief is so discounted that it is tacitly or explicitly, through omission or commission of media coverage and political discourse, just considered to be incidental, regrettable, but no big deal. Well, that is nationalistic to an extreme. It is often racist, and it's often so culturally centered on our particular way that we happen to live in the United States. I have a chapter in the book called The Color of War.
I saw that, and yes.
When I stepped back and I thought about it, I was working on this book often in this room, thinking about it, trying to do more reading and interviewing. And it dawned on me that in 2 decades of the so-called war on terror after 9/11, virtually 100% of those killed by the US military have been people of color. Now that's hidden in plain sight. Where do we see that even discussed in our US mass media, in the politics, it is like a no-go zone. It's right there. It's like the parable of the emperor's new clothes, that story. Who's going to say it? Who's going to say that out loud so that we can all talk about it? And to be very clear, in my book, and this is part of why I called it War Remain Invisible, I say very explicitly that we need to understand how this is hidden from us. And yet it's happening. It's right in front of us. So I want to be very explicit about this. The United States government does not bomb countries because people of color live there, but because people of color live there, that makes it politically easier in the United States to have that warfare begin and continue. And what is stunning to me is that we, and this is a good thing, in the last several years, particularly after the Minneapolis police officer murdered George Floyd, we have had more discussion, not enough, but more discussion about structural racism, about systemic racism. But once you get beyond domestic realities, domestic politics and policies, we don't see any discussion of systemic racism in US foreign policy and US warfare.
To DeSantis doesn't realize that we have yet to be woke enough. He's concerned about the woke.
Well put.
Like we are not near as woke as we really need to be in knowing these particular issues.
That's very true and very well put. I haven't heard it put quite that way before. That should become a national way of discussing what is wrong with these neo-fascists, and DeSantis now leading the pack in many ways. It's an attitude that says that we should all go back to sleep. We should all be anesthetized. We should all be numbed, when we should all be very callous. It is so inherently a vicious view of how humanity should treat itself.
I don't know if you remember during Desert Storm, the way CNN covered it, it looked like a game on TV with lights, and to put it bluntly, it was actually as you saw it, it was actually pretty. As you saw the lights and the flares, and I remember talking to somebody and saying, for every flare that you see, think about the number of people that are dead, the buildings that are falling and breaking skulls, etc. We in the United States, our media, were not allowed to see the carnage. But in Panama, in Costa Rica, in Dominican Republic, etc., their media actually saw the bones and the spilled blood and the cracked heads open. We couldn't see that here. So to us, it was a game that was being played. And most of the wars, it's amazing in the chapter where you talk about the color of war. It's amazing the concern that we had for those in Ukraine and how cruel it was. When in the Sudan and in many other places, atrocities of that nature, atrocities with our equipment being done, and it's nothing.
It's very much a normalized bias that is so extreme that it fits into what people seem to believe quite often is just natural. I use that cliche, but it's perhaps appropriate. The fish in the water who says, "What water?" This is the baseline 24/7, 365 in the media. If we had news media in this country that was truly willing and able to function without fear or favor, then as you referred to, yes, we would have this empathetic coverage of people who are suffering because of this horrible Russian invasion and war on Ukraine. We would also have similar coverage and empathy for people around the world suffering from warfare, and especially difficult for any major media outlet to wrap its journalistic mind around, is that people who are being killed, and this is still going on, by the way, as my book documents, under the, quote, war on terror, subsidized by US taxpayers, those people, if their suffering were being covered with anywhere near the kind of empathy that we're getting for people in Ukraine in US media, it would cause a tremendous difference in the political atmosphere of this country.
Amazing. Now, Norman, what would you like? First of all, for those that are listening, these are the types of books that we need to get out there. More of us need to be reading these types of books because we're being anesthetized by the mainstream media. That's what's really occurring here. So I will urge folks to go out and get actually not only this particular book, War Made Invisible, but also War Made Easy. Remember, we spoke about War Made Easy as well. Those books should be bought combined. I mean, this new one, of course, but combined, very important. What do you hope? And I don't like to use the word hope.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change that. What do you want to occur from those reading your books and those talking about your books?
What I want for response to the book is very much related to what you just referred to, Egberto, which is that the anesthetic, the anesthetized atmosphere of our society in the United States needs to have a big jolt that sustains us being awake constantly. We got to be woke. We got to be waking ourselves up and keeping ourselves awake, because this stuff is being done in our names with our tax dollars, and what goes around comes around. As Martin Luther King III said a few years into the so-called war on terrorism, and I quote this in his book, he said, "We all need to be concerned about terrorism, but you don't stop terrorism by terrorizing other people." And that's really a key message of this book. And as you referred to, I had an earlier one called War Made Easy. And when I thought about writing this new one, it really dawned on me that we have had so much warfare from the US in this country, and more it has become invisible. And that's why the first three words of the new book I wrote is War Made Invisible, because when we can't see it, this warfare state has more and more power over us. So it's really about getting some acuity, sharing with each other, because underneath all that, the knowledge is key, and then organizing behind the knowledge for change is absolutely crucial.
I know your books can be gotten everywhere, Amazon, everywhere else, but where's your website that folks can not only get your books, but get the commentary and a lot of your knowledge from?
I have an ongoing website, which is normansolomon.com, NORMANSOLOMON.com. And also for this book, there's a lot of background about it on the New Press website. And the New Press is a nonprofit publisher. And if you simply go to thenewpress.com and click on the icon with my book cover on it, I was really thrilled to get the kind of endorsement and support for this specific book, War Made Invisible, by Noam Chomsky, by activists, by those who have really been in the forefront of organizing. And as you know, and we've talked about this before, but I never feel that it's too much to repeat. This is about learning and action, because the future of our lives and our loved ones really hang in the balance.
The name of the book, War Made Invisible: How America Hides the Human Toll of Its Military Machine, a must-get. Norman Solomon, American journalist, activist, media critic, and the co-founder and national coordinator of RootsAction.org. Thank you so kindly for having been once again on Politics Done Right.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate our conversation.
Yeah, that guy is great. He's we've had him at Daily. I think not Daily. I think at where's the convention I saw him at? I think it was at maybe it was a Democracy Convention in was it Minnesota? No, it was in Madison, Wisconsin. I think it was. Anyhow, thank you, Breach. Thank you, Michael. Michael has an interesting put up on the screen here that I want to show you guys, because this is ridiculous, right? By the budget that Biden proposes, and remember this, the Republicans wanted $40 billion more to this. Pentagon, $886 billion. DHS, VA, DOS, military, all that kind of stuff, prisons, all that kind of stuff, $225 billion. Social programs, $584 billion. You know, Biden used to say this statement. He used to say, show me your budget and I show you what you really care for. That tells the story. That's the American story. And unless we understand that and we change that, you know, China, we talk about how bad China is and what kind of a country it is, etc. Forget about what you assume or what you think about China or what's in their hearts. I cannot judge somebody from what's in their hearts because I can't see their hearts. I can only see what they do. I can only see what they invest in. I can only see what they care for outwardly. And the impression that China has given the rest of the world, Central America, South America, Africa, is they're going in there and they're building resources. Look, I don't care what's in their heart. What they're doing are not blowing stuff up. They're actually building stuff. Jamaica just got a multifaceted freeway from one end of Jamaica to the next end of Jamaica. It's a toll road built, increasing commerce, etc. A few Jamaicans have told me. If you go into places like Panama and other places, they're investing into building things. We are investing into destroying things. We're investing into cruise missiles. We first rip people off in charging more than it's worth. When we talk about corruption, when we talk about all these things, we just need to look in the mirror. I'm not talking about we the people. I'm talking about they the corporations. Look in the mirror. We are the most corrupt group. The only thing that we've learned to do it is to do it with style and to have the reporting mislead us. That's what we know how to do very well. But look at that, what's on the screen. Another screen I have here is from Brother Fleming. He said the VA does not provide, apparently the VA has some issues. All right, before we go to the VA one, this is what Villarica, Georgia. That is how they train their police officers. Check it out. Look at what they're trained to shoot at. And you wonder, for all of those who are always trying to make it seem the benevolency of cophood, the benevolency of policehood, like I say all of the times, my biggest fear is being next to a police officer. My biggest task whenever there are police officers around is to get the hell out of Dodge. I'm a professional. I'm an engineer. I'm an educated person. I've written books. I do all these things. And when I see a cop, all I want to do is to get the hell out of Dodge. All I want to do is to run out of there. That's what I'm talking about. And if you take a look at how do you think that kind of a training sensitizes that cop that's there? How do you think that person shooting at that picture in training of, look at that, all of the pictures there, black men, for cops to shoot. How do you think that sensitizes a police officer, irrespective of race? Because when it comes to police officers, I care as much, or rather, I am just as scared as from the white ones, as the black ones, as the Asian ones, as the Latino presenting ones, etc. They all give me fear because it's the institution that's racialized. And by the way, I have a lot of relatives that are cops. Okay? So please, thank you for giving me that picture there, Dr. Fleming. I think it is of interest to have shown that picture. The other thing that Fleming pointed out, and I don't know if I got it, apparently I didn't get it saved, is that it turns out that there is out of the statistical realm, when it comes to getting VA benefits, black veterans are turned down at a higher rate than white veterans. And again, that is out of the statistical realm at that point. In fact, it's worse because a higher percentage of black folks actually apply for the benefit. So thank you for presenting that one for us to put out there in the ethos, Senor Fleming. I have another video for you. This one has to do with Michael Steele, former chairman of the Republican Party, and Chairman Steele makes it clear Trump can win again. It's not something I haven't been saying for a long time. Trump can win again, and it's not all that difficult. A few days ago on my KPFT program, I pointed out that the thing that gave me the most fear was that we worked hard, and John Cutter, who is in the House, can attest to that, because John ran several organizations that really got the vote out, overperformed everywhere in this area because of the work he and his team's done. But interestingly, we brought out a ton more people for Biden. As you can see in the vote, Biden got 81 million plus votes, unheard of. But the person that got the second most amount of votes in this country was Donald Trump, 74 million. And you wonder, what if we hadn't gotten scared in 2020 and busted our butts to get people out? It would have been President Trump for this next term, and likely the next term as well, because you know he was going to find a way to stay in office again. And you ask yourself the question, what's going on in America? What is it that's going on in America? I saw Michael Steele attempt, as a former Republican chair, attempt to answer that. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I want to go to my friend Michael Steele now, the former RNC chair who knows Republican politics backwards and forwards. So in 2016, there was still a little bit of delusional thinking that at some point, Donald Trump was going to go away. I think that now by this stage in the game, people aren't as delusional, but I'm surprised that people were surprised that Donald Trump had such strength in this NBC poll, because it's what so many people have been saying for a while now, if you're really watching the Republican electorate. Mm-hmm. So what would it take, in your estimation, for Donald Trump not to be the 2024 nominee?
An act of God. I don't know. Think about it. This man is 37 indictment, 37 count indictment, and its numbers go up. So, this is baking itself in a way that I just don't see any of these candidates that are running against him in this primary not just chipping away at least, but actually gaining enough sufficient ground to become a credible number two, to narrow the race to just two people that, would excite and bring into the mix those Republican voters who are about 60% of whom do not support or do not vote in primaries, Republican primaries. That's a big number. And there are lanes there that can be created for that. But I just don't see where that comes down at this point. Donald Trump is one of these political figures, once in a lifetime. Unfortunately for us, it's our lifetime, that has this kind of hold on a political party that, by the way, he could give two rats patooties about. This is just like going from one vehicle to the next. It's a better driving political car for him, that he can manipulate the gears seamlessly, easily. And it's exampled in the polling that Vaughn is sharing with us, that this is the kind of hold he has. So, who takes him out? I think even God Almighty is saying, well, we may need to have a meeting on that,
Well,
I don't know.
Steele, you know what that is, though. Doing better, your conspiracy theories sticking, doing better as indictments pile up. I mean, some would call that a cult. Some would call that fascist tendencies.
Yeah, oh no, he plays to that extraordinarily well, and again, how much of that is true belief and true intent by Donald Trump? He's a transactional guy. What do I need in the transaction to make it work for me, right? But the other side of it is people believe that. They latch onto it, and it picks a side for them that they're much more inclined towards. And so that's how he locks it in. And it's an amazing, we're going to be studying this phenomenon for a long time to better understand how this country, in all that we profess, can withstand this in the future. Because right now at 49, 45, and you can say what you want about Joe Biden's age. You can say all you want about Democrats. This is less about them and a lot more about a country that's inclined towards some of the things Donald Trump is putting out there.
That last statement that he just said, it's more about a country that is satisfied, that believes in, that allows themselves to be controlled by some of the things Donald Trump is putting out there. I mean, I sit back and Michael Rudnin just put a very important one up there. This is something that we have to beat. Look at this. I want you guys to see this. List of presidential candidates by votes in one election. Joe Biden won 81 million people in that 2020 election. Donald Trump won 74 million. Okay, each of them, So Donald Trump lost by over 7 million votes. Okay? By over 7 million votes. All of you listening to me right now, I want you to understand something profound. In as much as Donald Trump lost by 7.1 million people, Hillary Clinton lost the Electoral College by more votes, or rather by less votes than by less votes than Biden won. What I mean is this. If Hillary Clinton had gotten, I think it was 60-something more thousand votes in 3 states, her $3 million win would have been, popular win would have been enough to carry the day. I think it's 80, actually I think it's 80,000. But here's a scary thing. Joe Biden beat Donald Trump not by 3 million votes, not by twice that, 6 million votes, but more than twice the amount that Hillary won by, 7.1 million votes. And we had a flip of 21,000 votes. Had 21,000 votes shifted to Trump, that's for a differential of 40,000 votes, it would be a President Trump winning the Electoral College even as he lost the popular vote by over 7.1 million votes. I want you all to digest that. This is not a democracy. This is not a democracy. It is essential that you digest what I just said. Essential. For those, we just got a bunch that just came in. I want to repeat that. Donald Trump can still win this thing. And Donald Trump doesn't have to win big popular votes or stop us from getting. We can get some huge popular votes in the blue states. But like I said, with a 7.1 million vote excess, Joe Biden still only won by 21,000. He won by 40,000 votes, which means if 21,000 votes had flipped, it would have been President Trump again. And the same thing can happen again in 2024. This is not a democracy. This is something where people have to go out there and vote like they've never voted like before. I don't know. That gave me pause when I read that several years ago, when I saw the numbers concerned me. And the problem that I have is this. I can make the argument now that they are going to use in 2024. And they're going to not specifically go after Biden's age in a malicious manner. They're going to go over Biden's age as if something happens to him, you get Kamala Harris. And we all know it's bad enough that you got an Obama, but a Kamala Harris? That's how these people are going to be, that's how they are going to be sensitized. And it has already started. It has already started. Look, the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do. They have a lot of education to do. They have a lot of shoring up the vote to do. They have a lot of atoning to do. A lot of atoning to communities that's been forgotten even today. A lot of atoning to do. Because as I see it, brothers and sisters, as I see it, 2024 is going to be difficult. 2024 is going to be difficult. You think Donald Trump is going to get convicted? I'm not counting on Donald Trump to get convicted. I'm counting on Donald Trump to go straight and find all kind of ways to get breaks, because he has all of the times, because we as those who are progressives and Democrats don't really do what's necessary. I got a call, or rather, I got an email today. I want to tell this story real quick, because I'm going to be, we have multiple tiers to do, right? But the problem is we have a group of Democrats proper who are in the bag for the plutocracy. And it's going to be hard to make the case, because we know, John Cotter, one of our leaders here in town, he knows how to win. It's all the things that brings in the seniors, the millennials, and everybody else. We have the policy, and we have the guts, and we have what it takes to point them into the right direction. Let me give an example. Right now, I'm talking to one of the leaders in the PNHP right now. We're going to have an interview discussing DCEs and ACO reach, which is fooling many seniors into giving away their very good Medicare to private companies. You see all these venture capitalists, the vulture capitalists running into the space, the healthcare space, because now seniors are being privatized. You know, the private companies wanted nothing to do with seniors. They would not insure seniors. They had to pay 3 times the rate to get seniors involved in it. Okay? But now, the thugs in Congress, including some Democratic thugs, are supporting DCEs and ACO reach, which allows these vulture capitalists to come in, privatize healthcare, and do it behind your backs. And do it behind their backs. Okay, my head hurts. I got a bit too excited there. But here's the deal. We have to come out and say we are not going to allow that to happen. We are going to really give you choices. We are going to do all these things. When it comes to student loans, we're going to say not only are we going to give you student loans, all our brothers and sisters in Appalachia, you are going to get whatever resources you need to improve your life. And we're not going to cede Appalachia to Reds. We are going to send, if you go to Crystal Ball supported a lot of Democrats that were running in these rural areas. That I need to get Crystal Ball on the program. That's running in Appalachia. She's from Appalachia. That go out there and engage all our brothers and sisters in Appalachia to make a difference. Let them know we care. We are not these caricatures with horns. It's like what I told you, that woman spoke to me forever in Starbucks. And when she realized that I was a progressive, a real lefty progressive liberal, she get red face. But you are so nice. Folks, the work that Democrats need to do to win over people is the work that Republicans have done. I've seen them doing it. I've been in conferences where they do it. We aren't. When they talk about we having elitist folks in ivory towers doing stuff, it's the truth. When we're spending, you know, all those pieces of mail that you get, give the DHCC, give the DCCC, give the DSCC all this money. Do you think that money go into the hood, into Appalachia, and into the ghettos, and into all these other areas with people who work these communities? Who, if you gave them $100, give them $100 to go out there and bring people, talk to people about what you're going to do, engage people. Let people know you exist, your skin, bones, blood, flesh. Let them know. Right? They will start voting their interest, and they'll know that their interest, that voting Republican is anathema to humanity. It's anathema to health care. It's anathema to child care. It's anathema to all these things because they don't believe in it. They're Ayn Randian individualists. Even though Ayn Rand had to go on Social Security on her deathbed. Look, we got a lot of work to do. And we should start doing it. Okay? We should start doing it. I know I have a lot of stuff to read. I can't go through it now because we only have 3 more minutes left. But I want to thank you guys for all that you do here, for being here. I want to beg of you, share the videos. I also do. I turn all of this into a podcast. If you go to, I'm going to pull this up here, but there are several asks that I have right now. If you are on YouTube right now, please click that join button. Become a member. Help us promote this message. Help us get to the people, not only the ones listening. I am going to talk to folks in Appalachia. I'm going to be going out there to Netroots in Chicago. I'm going to go to a couple of those AM radio stations that are going to be there and have a chat with these people. How can we reach these people? Because it's not those folks in ¿cómo se llama? It's not those folks in the ivory towers that we pay $20,000 and $50,000 after we raise money from our people. We give it to these consultants. They don't know diddly. They haven't been on the ground. They haven't seen the pains of people. They haven't. But they want to tell us what to do based on a poll that they take from people who don't even answer polls. Right? So if you're on our network right now, please, if you're on YouTube, please click that join button, become a part of our network. You know, a coffee a month, 2 coffees a month, whatever tickles your fancy. But more importantly, please consider joining, supporting us in whatever manner you can. You can find it all in politicsdoneright.com/support, which I'm putting into the feed right now. politicsdoneright.com/support, politicsdoneright.com/support. Remember, I'm going off to Chicago. I had to, it expired, the feed expired, so I had to redo I had to redo the newsletter, rather the ask for Netroots. So here is the ask for Netroots. Please consider becoming a Netroots supporter. Remember, everything that you are going to be, everything that you support us with, It's going to be you supporting. You're going to be on the scroll for our videos, etc. So please support us at Netroots however you can. All right, folks, I've got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Cannot do this without you. I am what? What am I again? I am out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please.